There was a time in my life when I believed success was the ultimate destination. I thought if I could build impossible things, survive sleepless nights, carry the pressure of the world, and still keep moving forward, then nothing could ever truly break me. But I was wrong, because the strongest people are not destroyed by failure. They are destroyed by love. And tonight, I'm going to tell you the story of the one person who changed everything inside me. The person who made me realize that even a man chasing the future can become terrified of losing someone in the present. If you stay with me until the end of this speech, you'll understand why some people become your peace, your obsession, your weakness, and your reason to keep fighting all at once. I met someone who didn't care about status, money, power, or the noise surrounding my life. While the world looked at achievements, she looked directly into my soul. That was dangerous because when someone truly understands you, they gain access to the parts you spend years hiding from everyone else. I was used to competition, used to people wanting something from me, used to temporary loyalty. But she brought something unfamiliar into my life, sincerity. And the moment I felt that, something inside me shifted forever. Suddenly success felt empty when she wasn't around. Meetings became distractions. Victories became meaningless if I couldn't share them with her. People say powerful men fear failure. Number men fear attachment because once you love deeply, you finally discover something you cannot control. The strange thing about love is that it changes your priorities without asking permission. Before her, I could spend weeks focused only on ambition. I could isolate myself emotionally and convince myself that emotions were distractions. But she broke that system completely. I started thinking about her during the busiest moments of my life. I wanted to protect her smile from the cruelty of the world. I wanted to build a future where she never had to question her worth. And then one terrifying realization hit me. I couldn't imagine another person standing beside her. I couldn't imagine someone else hearing her laugh, understanding her dreams, or holding her hand during difficult nights. That feeling wasn't possession, it was fear. Fear of losing the one person who made life feel human again. When you finally find someone who becomes your emotional home, the idea of losing them feels like losing oxygen itself. People misunderstand intense love. They think it's weakness. But love is one of the most dangerous forms of strength because it forces you to confront yourself honestly. She made me realize how emotionally broken I had become after years of chasing impossible goals. She saw through my confidence and noticed the exhaustion I tried to hide from the world. And instead of running away, she stayed. That loyalty changed me more than any success ever could. For the first time, I didn't want to win alone anymore. I wanted partnership. I wanted someone who could stand beside me during chaos and still believe in me when the world doubted everything. That's rare. Very rare. Most people only love you when you're easy to love. But the right person loves you even when your mind is heavy, your soul is tired, and your life feels like a battlefield. There were nights when I sat alone thinking about how fragile love really is. One misunderstanding can destroy years of connection. One ego battle can create permanent distance. One moment of neglect can make someone feel invisible or evil. That realization made me protective over what we had because deep connections are not built every day. You can meet thousands of people and still never find someone who truly understands your silence. She became the calm inside my chaos, the one person capable of slowing down the storm inside my head. And I knew I could never casually replace something that rare. Some people enter your life temporarily, others become part of your identity. She became part of mine. That's why the thought of sharing her love with someone else felt impossible to accept. Not because I wanted control, but because certain connections only happen once in a lifetime. The world teaches people to hide vulnerability, especially men, especially ambitious men. We are taught to appear fearless, untouchable, emotionally controlled. But love destroys that illusion. Love exposes every insecurity you thought you buried years ago. Suddenly you care too much. Suddenly you overthink. Suddenly another person's happiness affects your entire emotional state. And despite how terrifying that sounds, it's also beautiful. Because for the first time, life stops being only about survival or achievement. It became poems about connection, about protecting something meaningful, about building memories with someone who makes ordinary moments feel extraordinary. She taught me that no amount of money can replace genuine affection. No level of fame can replace loyalty. And no success in the world feels complete if the person you love isn't standing beside you to witness it. So, if you're listening to this right now, remember something important. When you find someone who truly sees you, appreciates your soul, supports your dreams, and stays loyal during your darkest moments, don't treat that connection casually. Protect it, fight for it, communicate honestly, because real love is becoming rare in a world full of temporary emotions and disposable relationships. And if someone becomes your peace in this chaotic world, don't let pride destroy what destiny works so hard to bring into your life. At the end of everything, people won't remember how many followers you had, how expensive your car was, or how powerful you became. They'll remember who stood beside them when life became difficult. And for me, she became more than love. She became my reason to believe that even the most ambitious hearts die. I'll need someone to call home. There was a time in my life when I genuinely believed emotions were distractions created for people who lacked ambition. I thought the strongest individuals were the ones who could disconnect from feelings, ignore attachment, and focus only on progress. Every hour of my life was organized around goals, pressure, deadlines, and impossible expectations. I trained myself to survive stress without showing weakness. The world praised that version of me. People admired the discipline, the obsession, the hunger to achieve things others considered unrealistic. But what nobody understood was that the higher you climb, the more isolated you become. Success creates noise around you but silence inside you. And eventually you start wondering if anyone actually sees the real person behind the achievements. Most people only admire what you produce, not who you are. When the cameras disappear and the nights become unbearably quiet. Then one day, everything changed because of a single conversation with someone who didn't look at me the way the rest of the world did. She didn't seem impressed by titles, influence, or accomplishments. Instead, she looked directly into my eyes like she was searching for the human being hidden underneath years of emotional armor. That moment unsettled me more than failure ever could, because I realized how long it had been since someone truly tried to understand me, instead of benefit from me. I remember sitting there pretending to remain emotionally controlled while internally feeling something unfamiliar. Slowly breaking through the walls I spent years building around myself. Her presence felt calm, honest, and dangerously genuine in a world where almost everything felt transactional. And the terrifying part was that I instantly knew she had the power to affect me in ways nobody else ever had. People think powerful individuals are afraid of losing money, influence, or status. But the truth is much deeper than that. The greatest fear is finding someone who becomes emotionally irreplaceable. Because once that happens, you finally discover something you cannot dominate, with intelligence, logic, or discipline. Love doesn't follow systems. It ignores strategy completely. Before her, I could walk away from almost anything without hesitation. I could sacrifice sleep, comfort, relationships, and even happiness. I in pursuit of bigger goals. But after meeting her, my mind started changing in ways I couldn't control. During important meetings, I caught myself thinking about her smile. During stressful nights, I wondered whether she was okay. During moments of victory, she became the first person I wanted to talk to, because achievements suddenly felt incomplete without her presence attached to them. That was the moment I realized love is not weakness at all. Love is the one force capable of making even the strongest person emotionally vulnerable. And vulnerability is terrifying when you've spent your entire life convincing the world that nothing can break you. She made life feel different, slower, more meaningful, more human. For the first time, I stopped thinking only about building the future and started imagining sharing that future with someone who genuinely cared about the person behind the ambition. That feeling changed everything inside me because once someone becomes your emotional piece, the idea of losing them begins to feel like losing a part of your own soul itself. The strange thing about love is that it never announces when it's about to take control of your life. One day you are completely focused on your own path, convinced that nothing can interrupt your ambition. And then suddenly one person enters your world and rearranges everything without force, without permission, without warning. Before her, my life operated like a machine. Every decision had logic behind it, every relationship had boundaries, every emotion was controlled because I believed control was the secret to survival. I had spent years training myself to remain emotionally distant from people because attachment creates risk and risk creates pain. The higher you rise in life, the more you realize how temporary most connections really are. People celebrate you when you're successful, support you when you're useful, and disappear the moment life becomes inconvenient. That reality made me emotionally cold without even noticing it. I stopped expecting loyalty from people. I stopped believing anyone could truly understand the pressure constantly running through my mind. Then she appeared at the exact moment I had almost accepted emotional emptiness as normal. What made her different wasn't beauty, attention, or charm. It was the feeling of peace she carried naturally around her. I don't feel the need to perform, impress, or protect an image. For the first time in years, I felt understood without having to explain myself completely. And once that happens to a person who has been emotionally isolated for too long, everything changes internally. I started noticing how deeply she affected my everyday life. My mood shifted depending on her energy. Her happiness mattered to me more than my own comfort. Even during the busiest moments, my mind searched for her presence, because she became the calm part of my chaotic existence. That scared me more than I wanted to admit. Strong people fear dependency, because dependency creates vulnerability. The moment someone gains emotional importance in your life, they also gain the ability to hurt you in ways nobody else can. And yet, despite understanding that risk completely, I still found myself falling deeper into the connection. I began imagining a future where she remained beside me through every challenge ahead. I imagined building success with her instead of celebrating it alone. I imagined protecting her from every disappointment life could bring, and slowly another feeling emerged inside me. A feeling so intense, it became impossible to ignore. I couldn't imagine sharing her love, attention, or emotional connection with anyone else. Not because of ego, not because of control, but because certain people become so deeply attached to your soul that the thought of losing them feels physically painful. People judge possessive love without understanding the fear hidden underneath it. When you finally find someone who heals the loneliness you carried silently for years, you become terrified of anything that could take them away from you. That fear comes from love, not ownership. She became more than a relationship to me. She became emotional security in a world full of uncertainty. And once someone reaches that place inside your heart, they stop feeling replaceable because their presence changes the way you experience life itself. People often talk about success as if it automatically brings happiness, but nobody speaks about the emotional cost of becoming obsessed with greatness. The world celebrates your victories while quietly ignoring the sacrifices hiding behind them. Long nights alone, constant pressure, endless expectations, the feeling that no matter how much you achieve, it's never enough. Awi to finally silence the voice inside your head demanding more. I lived inside that cycle for years. I convinced myself that emotional detachment was necessary because caring too deeply about people could distract me from the future I was trying to build. I became comfortable carrying stress in silence, comfortable pretending that exhaustion didn't affect me, comfortable hiding loneliness behind productivity. From the outside, everything looked powerful, but internally, there were moments when life felt empty in ways I couldn't explain to anyone. Then she entered my life and somehow noticed the sadness I had buried beneath ambition. That was unusual because most people only paid attention to the version of me visible to the world. They saw confidence, discipline, and determination. She saw fatigue, she saw emotional scars hidden behind composure. And instead of becoming intimidated by those broken parts of me, she accepted them with a level of patience I had never experienced before. That kind of acceptance changes a person deeply. Because when you spend years believing you must always appear strong, finding someone who allows you to be human again feels almost unreal. Aru. And here I stopped feeling like I was constantly at war with myself. Conversations became peaceful instead of performative. Silence became comfortable instead of awkward. Even the smallest moments with her carried emotional weight because they reminded me what genuine connection feels like in a world filled with superficial relationships. Slowly, she became the only place where my mind truly rested. And once that happened, I realized something terrifying. I needed her emotionally more than I wanted to admit. Not in a weak way, but in the way oxygen becomes necessary without you consciously thinking about it. She became part of my emotional balance. The person capable of calming thoughts that nobody else even knew existed inside me. That's why the idea of another person taking her place became impossible for me to accept. People misunderstand deep attachment because they assume it comes from insecurity. But sometimes it comes from gratitude. Gratitude for finding someone rare enough to understand your soul when the entire world only notices your achievements. She gave me something success never could. Peace. Real peace. The kind that money cannot purchase, and attention cannot replace or place. She reminded me that behind every ambitious person is still a human being desperate to feel understood, valued, and emotionally safe. And once someone gives you that feeling after years of emotional isolation, you protect it with everything inside you because you know how rare it truly is. Most people spend their entire lives searching for genuine emotional connection and never find it. I found it unexpectedly in her presence, and that realization changed the way I viewed love forever. Because for the first time I understood that the greatest luxury in life is not power, fame, or achievement, but having one person who makes the world feel less heavy when everything around you becomes difficult. There were nights when I sat completely alone, surrounded by success, surrounded by achievements people dreamed their entire lives about. And yet none of it felt powerful enough to silence the fear growing inside me. The fear wasn't about failure anymore. It wasn't about losing money, status, or influence. It was about losing her. That realization shocked me because I had spent years believing nothing in this world could emotionally control me. I trained myself to remain focused under pressure. I learned how to survive criticism, betrayal, stress, and disappointment without allowing emotions to weaken my decisions. But love changes the structure of a person quietly. It doesn't destroy your strength, it redirects it. Suddenly, the person you love becomes connected to your emotional stability in ways you never expected. Before her, if life became difficult, I simply worked harder. I pushed myself further. I distracted my mind with bigger goals and impossible missions. But after she became part of my life, something changed inside me permanently. Her presence started affecting the way I experienced everything. A stressful day became manageable after hearing her voice. A painful moment felt lighter when she stood beside me. Even silence with her felt more meaningful than conversations with anyone else in the world. And that's when I understood how dangerous real love truly is. The more someone heals your loneliness, the more terrified you become of returning to the version of yourself that existed before them. People think heartbreak only hurts because you lose a person. Number heartbreak hurts because you lose the emotional world that person created inside or you. She became my calm during chaos, my peace during pressure, my escape from the endless noise constantly surrounding my life. And once someone becomes emotionally connected to your peace, the idea of another person replacing them feels impossible. I started noticing small things about her that became important to me without explanation. The way her energy could completely shift my mood. The way her presence made difficult moments feel survivable. The way she listened without judgment when my mind felt exhausted from carrying responsibilities nobody else fully understood. That emotional safety became addictive because powerful people rarely experience relationships where they can remove the mask completely. Most of the world expects strength from you constantly, but she allowed me to exist without pretending. She accepted the tired version of me, the overthinking version of me, the emotionally damaged version of me that success could never repair. And that kind of acceptance creates attachment deeper than attraction itself. I realized I wasn't afraid of being alone physically. I was afraid of becoming emotionally disconnected from the only person who made life feel human again. That fear made me protective over our connection because deep emotional bonds are fragile no matter how strong they seem. One misunderstanding can create distance. One moment of neglect can leave permanent emotional scars. One ego battle can destroy years of trust. That awareness forced me to understand that love isn't maintained through grand gestures alone. It survives through attention, honesty, loyalty, and emotional consistency. Because when someone becomes your emotional home, you cannot treat them casually. You cannot assume they will stay forever without effort. And the truth is, the stronger the connection becomes, the more responsibility you carry to protect it from the chaos of the outside world and from the darkness that sometimes exists within yourself. The world teaches ambitious people to believe that emotions are obstacles standing in the way of greatness. You grow up hearing that discipline matters more than feelings, logic matters more than vulnerability, and success matters more than connection. After a while, you begin treating your own heart like a machine that should function without rest, without weakness, without emotional dependence on anyone. I believed that for a very long time. I thought isolation was the price of greatness, and honestly, I accepted it. I became comfortable being misunderstood, because I convinced myself that nobody could truly relate to the pressure constantly living inside my mind. Every day felt like a race against time. Bigger goals, bigger risks, bigger responsibilities. The world looked at my life and assumed I had everything. But nobody understood how exhausting it becomes when your existence turns into endless performance. There's a loneliness that comes with carrying expectations nobody else can feel. And eventually you stop searching for emotional comfort because disappointment feels inevitable. Then she entered my life and completely destroyed that belief without even trying. What made her unforgettable wasn't perfection. It was authenticity around her. I didn't feel like I needed to become a different version of myself to deserve love. She accepted my intensity instead of fearing it. She understood my silence instead of forcing explanations from me. Most importantly, she stayed consistent in a world where consistency had become incredibly rare. That changed me more deeply than I can explain, because when someone loves you sincerely during your most exhausted moments, they begin healing emotional wounds. You stop talking about years ago. Slowly, I realized I was no longer building my future only for myself. Every dream started, including her. Naturally, every victory felt incomplete if she wasn't there to experience it with me. And for the first time in my life, I understood why people fight so hard for love, despite how painful it can become. Love gives meaning to ambition. Without connection, success eventually starts feeling empty, no matter how extraordinary your achievements appear to the outside world. She became the reminder that life is not only about conquering goals, but also about sharing existence with someone who makes the journey feel worth surviving. That's why my feelings became so intense. It was an obsession born from control. It was emotional attachment born from gratitude and fear combined together. Gratitude because she gave me peace I never thought I would experience. Fear because once someone becomes your emotional safe place, the possibility of losing them begins haunting your thoughts silently. I couldn't imagine another person taking him. Our place because emotional connection is not something you can duplicate like material success. Real connection is rare, very rare. You can meet thousands of people and still never encounter someone who genuinely understands your soul beyond appearances. She became part of my emotional identity. Her happiness affected me deeply. Her pain affected me deeply. Her absence affected me deeply. And in a strange way, that vulnerability made life feel more meaningful than ever before. Because for the first time, I wasn't only fighting for ambition anymore. I was fighting to protect something emotionally precious in a world where genuine love is disappearing more every single day. So if there's one thing life has taught me through all the chaos, pressure, ambition, and emotional battles, it's this: the rarest thing you will ever find is not success, power, or recognition. The rarest thing is finding one person who truly understands your soul when the entire world only understands your image. People spend their lives chasing achievements because they believe reaching the top will finally make them feel complete. I believe that too. I thought if I worked harder, sacrificed more, and pushed to myself beyond human limits, eventually I would arrive at a place where emptiness no longer existed inside me. But success alone cannot hold you together emotionally. Money cannot sit beside you during your darkest nights and remind you that you're still human beneath all the pressure. Fame cannot calm your thoughts when your mind feels exhausted from carrying responsibilities nobody else fully understands. The truth is, human beings are not built only for achievement. We are built for connection. And I didn't fully understand that until she became the most important part of my life. She changed the way I looked at everything. Before her, I measured life through productivity, goals, and results. After her, I started measuring life through moments, emotions, loyalty, and peace. Suddenly, the things that once felt important became meaningless if she wasn't there to share them with me. That realization terrified me, because I had spent years convincing myself I didn't need anyone emotionally. But love humbles even the strongest people. It forces you to admit that no matter how independent you become, your heart will always search for a place where it feels safe enough to rest. She became that place for me around her. I didn't feel pressure to be perfect. I didn't feel forced to carry the weight of the world alone. She saw every damaged part of me and stayed anyway. And once someone accepts you at your weakest moments instead of only admiring you at your strongest, they become impossible to replace. That's why my love became so deep, because it wasn't built only on attraction. It was built on emotional survival. She brought warmth into parts of my life that had become emotionally cold after years of isolation and endless ambition. And when someone heals loneliness you've carried silently for years, you naturally become protective over that connection. Not because you want ownership over them, but because losing them feels like losing a piece of yourself. People today treat relationships like temporary entertainment. They walk away too quickly, they replace people too easily. They destroy deep connections over pride, ego, and short moments of anger without realizing how difficult it is to find genuine love in this world. Real love is not perfect. It's not always easy. Sometimes it demands patience, sacrifice, understanding, and emotional maturity. But when you find someone who gives your life peace instead of confusion, someone who remains loyal when life becomes difficult, someone who understands your silence without needing constant explanations, you hold on to that connection with everything inside you, because some people enter your life for a season, while others become part of your soul forever. And she became the part of my soul I could never imagine living without, because loving her didn't just change my heart, it changed the entire meaning of my existence. In the end, life taught me something I never expected to learn while chasing greatness. The most powerful thing in this world is not intelligence, money, influence, or success. The most powerful thing is love that remains loyal when everything else becomes uncertain. Because achievements may impress the world, but genuine connection heals the soul. I spent years believing that strength meant surviving alone, carrying pressure without emotion, and never allowing anyone close enough to affect me deeply. But then she entered my life and changed every definition I had of strength, ambition, and happiness. She made me realize that even the strongest hearts still crave peace, understanding, and emotional safety. And once you find someone who becomes your calm during chaos, your light during darkness, and your home during emotional storms, you stop seeing love as a distraction and start seeing it as the very reason life becomes meaningful.